And, of course, Ross Tucker was in attendance to check out the Raiders as they played the 272nd and final regular season game of the 2021 season. They will also now kick off the playoffs in style on the road against Cincinnati. Now, this is one of 5 rematches that we will have this weekend. Back in Week 11, Cincinnati won 32-13. But you have to remember, it was 16-13 with 5 and change to go, and then the Bengals erupted for the last 16 points of the game. So it was very close for 55 minutes, and then the Bengals just totally waxed them here. So, Jared, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that haven't won a playoff game in a while. The Bengals have the longest playoff drought of any team in the NFL, for their last 8. Most of the players on this team, including the quarterback, Joe Burrow, weren't even alive the last time the Bengals won a playoff game. Same thing for the Raiders. They haven't won one since 2002. They've only made it once since that Super Bowl run in 2003. So it's certainly been a drought for both teams. When I look at the Bengals this year, I like the steady improvement of their offense. First half of the year, 18th in EPA per play. Back half of the season, 6th. They are getting better as the season has gone on. The Raiders' defense has kind of been this Jekyll and Hyde this year. They've been great against the run, especially the second half, not great against the pass. In fact, overall, they're a bottom 5 defense in passing success rate over the back half of the season. That's good news for Joe Burrow. That's good news for this Bengals offense that kind of got a break last week. And the question I have, and maybe Ross can kind of answer this a little bit, it's been an emotional roller coaster for this Raiders team. Obviously, what happened midseason with Gruden and then Ruggs and then Arnett and then the back half of the year having to win 4 games in a row just to get into the playoffs. Short week, go from Sunday night to Saturday. Is there a chance that there's a little bit of an emotional letdown? Because I know it's hard to call any playoff game a letdown, but they've been so locked in for so long. Can they keep that level against the Bengals team that is very athletic, especially up front? They're going to be missing a key defensive lineman. I get the feeling that the Bengals might have the edge physically in this game, and mentally, if the Raiders do let down even just a little bit, I think Cincinnati can take advantage of that as well.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is an all-time bad spot for the Raiders. I was there Sunday night. As Chris mentioned, that was epic. I mean, I don't know. How many regular season games have ever been better than that? I mean, when you consider the stakes and Herbert's 7 fourth downs of like 4th and 8 or more or something crazy, and just the whole Steelers fan intrigue. Maybe it was even more for me because I live in central Pennsylvania. A bunch of my friends around here are Steelers fans. And I just kept texting him like, oh, no, uh-oh. It was amazing. I was like, oh, you're good. They're up by 12. Oh, 15 might be bad. Uh-oh, they're going to go for 2 here. It was amazing. I like taunting. I've discovered the older I get, the more I like taunting fans.
I haven't learned that at all this year working with you.
No, it's a blast. It is a blast.
So, no, but in all sincerity, dude, they played the full 70 minutes.
Yeah.
That was an emotional roller coaster. Meanwhile, the Bengals played like nobody.
Nothing.
Okay.
Nobody.
At Cleveland. So you've got a team that has the least possible amount of rest in the Raiders and the craziest of emotions against a Bengals team that was the exact opposite. They rested everybody to get ready for this. This will be like if the Raiders win, the whole rest argument we need to have a strong look at. I think not only do I like the Bengals, I kind of like the over in the sense I just think the Raiders defense is going to be exhausted. I mean, exhausted. And last we saw them, Justin Herbert was kind of lighting them up only on 4th downs. I kept trying to ask if we could fast forward the game to 4th down. They don't allow you to do that. I still do think, though, I kind of like the over, kind of like the Bengals laying the points. I think it's a tough spot for the Raiders.
I think the only way the Raiders actually win this game is if they get 3 or 4 turnovers here. I mean, the one thing they do great, they get to the passer. And no quarterback was sacked more this year than Joe Burrow. And so we know that those defensive ends and Ngakoue and Crosby can really get to the passer. So we'll see that. But to me, that's about it. I mean, Cincinnati is riding a great wave. They're kind of a sexy pick, to be honest, to make it all the way to LA, and they could just find themselves there. They win this one. They're the 4 seed. They
go to Tennessee
the following week. Like, okay, great. And Joe Burrow, I'm buying stock in that guy yesterday. He's just awesome. He's just awesome. By the way,
remember how Montana was Joe Cool?
Yes, it's exactly.
I feel like Joe Burrow's nickname should be, and I don't mean this as a negative, Joe Cocky. Like I don't mean that as a negative. I think it's a big reason why he's so good. People are like, oh, that guy's arrogant, that guy's cocky. You know what the mindset has to be to get to that level?
100%.
Like you have to think you're better than everybody else,
yeah,
or you're dead.
Yeah. Okay. So Joe, speaking of Joe Burrow, last time he faced the Raiders this year, he threw for less than 150 yards. But then again, we saw what he did the last 2 times that he played in the regular season. More than 500 yards in one game, more than 400 yards in the next. Jared, is he going to be closer to that or to what we saw against the Raiders when it comes to passing yards?
So that game was unique in the sense that it was really tight, as you mentioned, to the fourth quarter. And I think because of at least the numbers that I'm looking at, back half of the year, again, the Raiders are a bottom 5 team against the pass and drop back success rate. Their passing efficiency rate has dipped throughout the season. And I'm looking at a number here of 270.5. And the Raiders have been good against the run. We'll see how much the Philbin injury, or the Phylon injury, affects that. That is a big injury. He actually is also really good in pass rushing grades too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to affect maybe double teaming Crosby a little bit more. We'll see how the Bengals offensive line, which has been maligned at times this year, handles that. I would say over on Burrow. I mean, I think a 300-yard game is certainly possible for him.
Okay. Ross, very quickly on Hunter Renfrow. Sometimes he gets a lot of catches, but not a ton of yards. So what do you think in terms of receiving yards?
Yeah, his number is at 54.5. I'm going to lean over because I think the Bengals are going to win the game. And so I think in the fourth quarter, Derek Carr is going to be chucking it all over the place and checking the ball down. That's Hunter Renfrow. So he might hit the over with some garbage time yardage late in the game.
Okay, and then finally, Josh Jacobs, Jared, if the Raiders have any chance, they're going to have to ride him. And he's actually been really good the last 4 or 5 games.
Really good. He had 132 and a touch against the Chargers, 26 carries. It's been the volume for him that's been impressive. His number right now sitting at 64.5. When I looked at the Bengals defense, first half of the season, they were a top 5 team in success rate against the run. Back half of the year, bottom 5. So I think there's going to be opportunities for him. Now, the problem, as Ross said, game script. If game script dictates that the Bengals are in front, then the Raiders might abandon the run. And I think the number at 64.5 is kind of baiting you to the over here. This is probably a pass for me, but I would lean under just because of where the game script could flow here with the Bengals getting off to an early lead.
All right, guys, somebody's scoring. Hopefully a bunch of guys are scoring on Saturday in this game. Let's make some picks, Ross.
Yeah, my first pick is going to be on the Raiders side, and it's the aforementioned Hunter Renfrow. He's at plus 175 right now. The guy, that really is who Carr looks for when they get down near the goal line in the red area. I don't know how he does some of the things he does. I don't know how you're supposed to cover him with some of the routes he runs. I feel bad for the corners. His change of direction is really just so unbelievable in and out of his routes. I love Hunter Renfrow plus 175.
Yeah, he's a magician. So the Raiders, again, the drop back success rate has been kind of where I've gravitated on this handicap all year. I mean, all day. And I think that means Jamar Chase, first playoff game, they will be looking for him. Fair number too. It's basically a coin flip. Don't forget, if one of these picks hit, free subscribe or a free Pickswise retweeter will get a free 100 bones. So Don't forget, we're gonna tweet this out. I'm not sure when, probably Friday, but somewhere in that time period before Saturday. Retweet it. Hopefully, one of our guys finds the end zone so you can get a free $100.
Awesome. All right, let's move on to the nightcap. For the third time this year, the Patriots and Bills will tango. The first time was up in Buffalo, week 13, 14-10 Pats, where Mac Jones, I don't think he actually threw a forward pass. I think everything went, I'm kidding, he threw 3. And then a couple weeks later, the Bills took care of business in Foxborough. Josh Allen, a monster game that day in a 33-21 win. I got to be honest with you, Ross, the Bills did not look great last week against the Jets. They did not look great the previous week against the Falcons. Bill Belichick is going to look at those 2 games and he's going to say, what did those 2 teams do against Josh Allen that I didn't do earlier in the year. Does that scare you if you're on Buffalo?
Yes, for sure. So does the weather. I'm going to be there. I'll be in the booth calling it on the radio for Westwood One. Thank goodness I'm in the booth. Steve Tasker's on the sideline.
He's used to it. He's used to it. He's been there before.
There is no such thing as used to it. Single digits? Single digits?
Zero,
And by the way,
bro.
I think a lot of people – what's that?
0.
It's crazy.
I have 0.
It's wild.
Is that what they're saying now?
Yeah, I have 0.
Better pack your chapstick, Ross.
Dude, this is gonna be one of those games where I'm gonna not even open the thing. Not even I'm gonna try to lobby to not even open the window. I don't need the atmosphere. I play in the NFL. Let me just stay warm. It'll be a better broadcast if I'm warm. Here's the thing that's interesting. Josh Allen, not great in cold weather. How about this stat? 31 degrees or less, 50.3% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. You would think because he's big and he's got big hands and he's got a strong arm. Wrong. He's not good in cold weather. And quite frankly, the Bills aren't that good unless Allen is playing like an MVP caliber player like he did in New England the last time these two teams met, I should say. I kind of like New England. I don't know how the line got back up to 4.5. I also like the under. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. Buffalo's defense is playing really well these days. This feels like a 20-17 game for me. Give me the under and give me the Patriots. I think even if the Bills win, I think it's a close, awesome game.
Fascinating matchup. I'll be honest. We're very fortunate. We get all these return matchups in the playoffs, and we get 2 matchups where we've seen 2 games between the 2 teams, divisional rematches. It is challenging in a sense because you would think contrarian, at least this is the contrarian in me, everything you saw in those 2 games you should throw out because the coaches will want to adjust, change the schemes, not show you what they showed you in that first game. And especially with this Bills Patriots game, the game was 3 weeks ago. It was very, very recently. I think overall the Bills defense is the first place that I gravitated towards with this handicap. Absolutely elite. First in EPA per play, first in DVOA. Every statistic that I look at, the Bills defense is at the top of the heap. Even the weighted metrics that kind of skew to the back half of the season. Their offense has been pretty steady this year. Slight improvement in the passing game, which I think is noteworthy because I do think, Josh Allen has maybe gotten a little more comfortable with some of, the newer weapons, especially Emmanuel Sanders. And I think overall, I really like this Bills offense. Is the weather going to play a factor in this game? Probably. It's really hard to say how much of a factor until these guys are on the field. But I would assume as long as there's no wind, if these guys can heat up a little bit, maybe it won't be as much of a factor in the second half of the game. Rookie quarterbacks in the wild card game, also noteworthy here. 4-7 against the spread. They haven't really thrown it that well. 55% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 12 picks. I don't know if Mac Jones falls into that category because of who his coach is and the type of season that he's had. But I think it's hard to trust the rookie quarterback in his first playoff game. So if I were to pick this game, I would go to the Bills. I think the Bills win, but because of the close nature of the matchups and how good these games were the last time that they played, it's tough to lay points. So I think this is a reluctant pass for me in this spot, but I do think the Bills win the game.
All right, a couple other orders of business. I know we throw a lot of numbers at people, but here's one that I do think is important, at least from the regular season. The Bills won 11 games this year. All 11 were by at least a dozen points. Yeah. I get it. Divisional foe. Third time, cold weather. I just want to put that out there for you. Also, last 8 years, there have been 6 matchups of divisional foes in a wild card round. The non-division winner has won 5 of the 6.
Wow.
5 of the 6.
How many years?
In the last 8 years, there have been a half dozen matchups in the wild card round. Okay, just wanted to put that out there.
And both teams won on the opposing road field, too.
My theory on that is the division winner usually won 1 or 2 of them during the regular season, which makes it hard to beat a team a third time or even 2 out of 3.
The one that I remember vividly is the Giants on their Super Bowl run when they beat the Cowboys, who were unbelievable, and they got swept by them. in the regular season, and then they beat them in the playoffs. That was the one that
I don't think that qualifies as the last.
It doesn't, but that, to Ross's point, we don't have any of those games in this playoffs because both teams split. Right. But it's always interesting when you get one when it's 2-0 in the regular season, and then the team that loses both wins in the playoffs.
All right, so Jared, you brought up the point about I don't know if it's going to be tough to catch the ball, throw the ball, or what have you. But while we're here, why don't we go for it? Mac Jones. Ross, the last time he was in Buffalo, he threw it 3 times. Is he going to throw it enough?
He will throw it more than 3. Over.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking about passing yards.
209.5 is his total. I would go under on that. I think they're going to try to pound the rock, play keep away. Mm-hmm. This Bills pass rush is nasty right now. I don't think they want to get Mac Jones knocked around. I know he's played a season in New England, but he's from Florida, went to Alabama. He hasn't played in weather like this. And when he played in pretty cold, windy, they didn't even have him throw it at all. Right. Love the under on that one.
Okay. Stephon Diggs. Interesting. He's had a few big games. Not a, scream at the top of your lungs type season, Jared, when it comes to receiving yards.
No, his receptions prop was really nice for us in that incentives target we had last week. His number this week in the yards category is 66.5. I think game script will dictate this one a little bit more than anything else. But even if the Bills are ahead and they aren't supposed to be throwing it that much, they prefer to throw it. And I think they have a lot of quick game screens and the quick routes that are basically like extensions of the running game. And again, when you talk about the cold weather, I saw this week Stephon said that he played in the coldest game ever, which was that Vikings outdoor playoff game a few years ago. And he said he'd be fine. He was fine in it. So I don't know if we're going to be able to gauge just how much of an impact the cold will have until we actually, maybe we'll text Ross on game day and see exactly, is it really bitter? Are these guys having issues warming up? Are you seeing anything on the field? Because I do think once you get warm, it's not like it's windy. If there's 20, 30 mile an hour winds, that's a different story. And that's what we saw in the first game between these teams. And if there's no winds, I would probably lean to the over on Diggs.
Okay. And finally, Hunter Henry. Ross, you weren't big on Mac Jones a minute ago.
Yeah, I mean, those two are heavily correlated, obviously. I'll go under on Hunter Henry's 31.5. I just don't think the Patriots are going to throw it much at all. Now, he might end up having 2 touchdowns and have 3 catches for 24 yards or something, but I don't see him putting a lot of yards up.
Okay. Jared, I think there will be touchdowns. There were a couple the last time they played up in Buffalo, but not a ton.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this is the lowest total game on the board this week. It's tough because I have 2 guys for Buffalo, and I hope Ross takes the other one. Actually, I know he's going to take the other one. But I always rely on Josh Allen in these big games. And I'll talk about it a little bit, too, with his rushing attempts prop. He had 12 carries the last time these teams played, and his rushing attempts prop is usually in the 6 or 7 range. And in the bigger games, again, to Ross's point earlier in the show, these teams, it's all out. You're not saving anything for next week. It's all in. And I think that's when the Bills and Josh Allen rely more on his legs. And so I think that's the one I'll pick. Plus 165, not a bad number either. And also that rushing attempts prop is worth a look as well.
Yeah, I would have gone Josh Allen. So
it's the other guy. I know you're going to take the other guy. You take him every time you do a Bills game.
Instead I'll go with Dawson Knox.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's it. That's
the other guy that Josh Allen kind of looks for down near the red zone. He's had a really nice year. Had some bad drops too, but I like his matchup against some of those linebackers, if that's who's covering him for the Patriots. They usually do a pretty good job of having some of the bigger safeties match up with him, but I'll still go Dawson Knox at plus 200.
And a quick reminder, Jared, for everybody, why we're doing this.
Yeah, well, we're going to tweet these out on Saturday, maybe Friday night. I don't know the timing of the tweet. But if you retweet it and one of our guys hits, you will get $100. One person, not everybody who retweets it. One person, Pickswise will select, will get $100 for free, just for being a retweeter and just for being a loyal Pickswise follower.